Hi, welcome to another episode of the Sustainable Pixel Podcast. Happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, everyone. It's your host, Shirley, and I'm excited to have another fun discussion today with my friend Vivian.
Hi, I'm back.
Yes, so welcome back. So we're going to have a little chat today about API in the entertainment industry. And I actually wanted to start us off by talking about the movie Minari, because we actually both saw it recently.
We did. What were your thoughts about the movie?
Well, it was very, very emotional, I think, to watch it. What about you?
I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it, but there were parts toward the end, not the end itself. I think that the end was probably the climax for a lot of people in terms of emotion, but there was a line right before the end that really got me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it for 2 days.
I actually don't know what line you're referring to, but we're just going to keep it right there just so that we don't ruin it. But yeah, I thought it was a really good movie, and I think that the fact that it was even created was a really good step forward for Hollywood, because it felt like a story that was very relatable to people like us.
Yeah, it was, but then it also wasn't, because they were on a farm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was also shot beautifully. I thought the lighting was really nice, and the when they shot the fields and stuff was just very good.
Yeah, no, cinematically it's beautiful.
How did you feel about the controversy surrounding Minari around January of 2021?
When they got nominated for the Golden Globes in the foreign language category.
Yeah, it was for a film set in Arkansas.
Yeah, I think I was very upset because I thought it was so dumb. This movie is basically the epitome of the American dream story of an immigrant couple that came to America to provide a better life for their kids. And, the kids are born in the States and all they know is living in America. And then for this whole movie to just be othered as a foreign language, I was very upset.
Yeah, I think one of the common criticisms levied against the decision for the Golden Globes to do that was that Inglourious Basterds is also in a bunch of different languages that are not English, and somehow Inglourious Basterds, which stars a lot of white people, was not considered foreign, even though it's not set here. So
yeah, it was not set here, and it was just ridiculous. And I think that that's a common theme that we've seen with just API in movies. No matter what it is, we'll just be seen as not, I guess, American, even though we very much are.
Yeah, and that there's nothing more American than an immigrant story set in America. There truly is not. And so I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not surprised, unfortunately, and that's just kind of the situation that we are in currently.
Yeah, I think I was really upset at first because I was surprised, but then as I kind of thought about it a little bit more, I was like, this is not super surprising. This is, everybody will make a big deal out of one movie that is good, right? That we may be represented in, or we as in the API community is represented in. But even if they praise the movie, it'll still be just not what's the word I'm looking for?
American?
Yeah, I guess it's just not, I don't know, it's not American. It's not considered mainstream enough.
Yeah, it's not just a mainstream indie divide. It's very much an ethnic divide with a mainstream white paradigm.
Yeah, because I think we don't talk about just how race plays a part in pop culture much in America. Do you agree?
I don't. Mainly because the people I follow or pay attention to are people who are very vocal about it. And so that actually is something I wonder is just is it because people aren't following the same people that I see? I mean, obviously I'm more disposed to following API actors.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure that people aren't talking about race. Well, maybe they are. I don't know. I don't know if that, I just don't know.
I think I follow more API actors and celebrities now, but I don't think that the majority of the people that I follow that are celebrities are API. So I feel like there's definitely not that many people that talk about it, but I do follow Eric Nam, who does actually talk a lot about it. And I've listened to different interviews that he's done, and he's just it's it's much better than it was before, but it's like it's not enough, and there still needs to be more traction.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think I agree with the idea that it's like we have Crazy Rich Asians, therefore we've done like we've made progress. I don't know if that can be considered progress, considered what happened to Minari.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is that there was a huge difference with the type of movie it is, right? Like Crazy Rich Asians, while I was actually really excited for that movie, because like I read the books just prior to it coming out, and like the entire story, I was captivated by it because it felt like my family on the not like the rich part. I'm definitely nowhere close to that level of economic status, but like it's a crazy large family, and there's just a lot of complicated relationships there, and that's what I connected with on that movie. But if you look at it for face value of Crazy Rich Asians versus Minari, Crazy Rich Asians was more appealing because it's that luxurious life. But it definitely doesn't mean that we like it was huge progress to have that kind of movie.
Yeah, but I the thing is, like, I think people talk about it as if it was like that movie that like just put us on the map or something. Like I think people now, like, if you ask, if you go and ask like a random Asian person, how do you feel about API in media? They'll be like, we had Crazy Rich Asians. We've made a lot of progress, and I think that is just a dangerous road to go down because it doesn't mean that we have.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I see both of it. I feel like I see some of my friends will post like, "Oh, like we had that. We're making so much progress." But then I think also now, like I think people are a little bit more critical of it to be like, "Okay, that wasn't actually representative." Also, it was a very specific, like the Asian like group it encompasses like 18 different people groups, right? So it was very specific to a very specific area of Asia, right? It wasn't like all groups were actually even represented in that movie.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the criticisms, right, levied toward the movie. But like on the other hand, right, like I do feel that it did open doors. In a way, it was one of those like it was a movie that people kept saying, this movie will prove that API will go out and buy tickets if you put, Constance Wu in the lead. And I think that did open doors because it was like in a way a watershed moment. I just don't think it was as big as people thought, right? But then it did lead to like Ali Wong and Randall Park getting like that Netflix movie.
Oh, did that actually lead
I
to
don't
it?
know, but I'm saying like right, like in the chronology of like what happened, I think it was like it
Mhm.
made that Ali Wong movie a lot more palatable to people. I think.
Mhm. I agree with what you said about it opening doors because I think it also puts people like you and me, like regular people, like it's not weird to see us as who we are on a big screen, right? Because like the Ali Wong and Randall Park movie, Always Be My Maybe, like that movie was phenomenal, by the way. I really liked it. I thought it was super funny, and it was just filmed in San Francisco. Like it is a very like normal, like regular story of just two people and their life.
Yes. Though she was a celebrity chef, I believe, and I think
Oh yeah,
Like, and then she hooks up with Keanu Reeves. So I
yeah.
like I don't know how believable that part is, but yes, it
Well,
was
if you're a
much more.
celebrity chef, right?
Right. But it was much more like it was easier to relate to than Crazy Rich Asians, at least on a facial level.
So thinking about just all of these uh these celebrities, right, that you met that are in these mainstream movies, like like what you said about like, oh, like Crazy Rich Asians was only going to do well because Constance Wu was in it. But I think the other part is like there's so many Asian Americans or API people that are trying to make it in Hollywood, but they really can't, and only like a handful of people really do.
I was listening to one of Dumbfounded's podcasts, and he was talking to Dante, who voiced Zuko in Avatar. Um, and they were, like, and Dante had I didn't know that he was in Fresh Prince. He was like,
Was he?
yeah, like they talked about it. They talked about him being on Fresh Prince, and I was like, wait, Dante was on Fresh Prince? What?
Oh my
But
gosh.
he's been
What?
around a long time. He was also in Hook with Robin Williams.
What?
Yes, but that's the thing is like he's been around, but I don't think many people know who he is.
Oh
But
my
that's the point,
gosh.
right? Like he's been around since like the '90s, acting in films and like mainstream TV shows, but I don't think many people know who he is. And Dumbfounded, I'm a huge fan of, and he's been doing battle rap and just being a rapper for a very long time. But I don't think he gets nearly as much recognition as he should. Um, so people have been around. It's just like the scope that they're reaching is not that far.
Yeah. And I think it's just kind of like sad because a lot of us also know that it is really hard to even just gain approval from like our own families to even pursue these types of careers.
Yeah. I'm just listing off things I've heard other celebrities say, but Stephen Yun will say that his parents are just like, what is this? Like, what are you doing right now? Even though he like booked The Walking Dead, I think pretty soon after he just started acting, um, and so it really just shows how there are like different levels of challenge, right? There's like the immediate like family not approving of your career choices, and then there's just like broader society not really hiring you.
Hmm.
And so that's at least two levels of challenges that we see on the outside. I'm not sure how many more that the actual actors face.
Yeah, because that's just like the stuff that they really remember and even like say like in an interview or something, right?
Hmm.
It's tough, I think, especially like families who might not know as much about the industry and like or may not even know how big like a certain gig would be, right? Like for Steven Yun or like even Eric Nam, like being a very well known like K-pop star. No, star?
I mean, yes, Eric, you are a star.
Yes. Yeah, you are a star. But yeah, Eric, like, you're known for your music, but you're also really known for giving great interviews and being a good host. And also like Jay from Day 6. Day 6 is pretty popular, I would think, and fairly successful, and yet his parents also still want him to go back to college and get a degree.
I think all of that actually speaks to a larger issue, which is that the more representation you get of API in media, the more likely like traditional Asian parents are going to accept that it's a viable career option because they're not seeing people on TV who look like you. And so like why should they accept your career choice of becoming an actor because they don't see it themselves.
Well, I think like with being able to like see yourself or see people like us on TV. Like I think that that is mostly something for, all like the Asian diaspora living in the Western world though.
Yes. I grew up watching a lot of TVB shows, which is like the main channel of television in Hong Kong. They would like export like VHS tapes out here, and you can like go to a video store to rent them. And so that's how I learned Chinese. But like that, like watching stuff like that and seeing like API being like doctors or lawyers or even just like delivery people. Like like because it's set in Hong Kong, you get like the variety of like different occupations, and I think that really shaped my worldview growing up. And it made me believe that I could do a lot more than maybe if I hadn't been exposed to that type of media.
Yeah, no, I think actually that's the difference between you and I. We had TVB on, like we paid for that channel because my grandma used to live with us, so she would watch it. But like I wouldn't really watch it. When I was in elementary school, I would be watching MTV and VH. What was that channel? I think it was VH1. Yeah, VH1 and like mainstream like shows and movies here. Oh, like later on, I watched like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon.
Wait, so you watched MTV before you watched Disney Channel?
Yes, this is what happens when you have cousins that are between 5 and 11 years older than you. I listened to 50 Cent when I was 5, and then I would also watch MTV, and back then we had TRL hosted by Carson Daly, original, not when he rebooted it. And then yeah.
That's a fascinating tidbit.
Yeah, I had a bit of a backwards timeline.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, I think I discovered Disney Channel when I was in 4th or 5th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't I don't know
But
how
yeah,
to.
anyway, even with my backwards timeline, I still ended up watching things like Boy Meets World, where it's depicting all these white picket fence houses in a very suburban place. in a state far away. And it shaped my worldview a lot different because in my mind, when I imagine my future, I still see like that in my head because it was ingrained in me at such a young age.
Me too. I think when I imagine like just an American life, I imagine Boy Meets World like in it
Yeah.
every and like every aspect of that I think is like quintessential for me for being like an American, even though like I wasn't represented in it or whatever. But it's like what you see is what you end up wanting. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like what was crazy to me is that I actually didn't realize how much it permeates into so many other parts of my life of why for me representation matters so much. I went to see Ali Wong when she was touring for her second special for Netflix, and she had a opening comedian. And forgive me because I don't remember his name, but he was also Asian and I think he was Filipino. And he painted a picture for us. He was like, "Oh, close your eyes and think about in your heart like a couple sitting on a bench. And I bet you it is a white couple because that is the stock photo on every frame that is in stores." And I'm just like blown away because I was like, wait, you're right. Why do I think of that? Why is it innate in me to think of a stock image photo of a white couple sitting on a bench? Why can't I see someone like me?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay, so you have brought up Eric Nam twice now, and so I think it's time to address it. So, tying it back to like TVB because I love talking about TVB. It's such an informative thing in my childhood, but a lot of the Miss Hong Kong like pageant winners were people who were either like they either grew up in Canada for a long period of time and or the US, or they were just born in the US or Canada and they ended up going to Hong Kong to compete in Miss Hong Kong. And generally, after you win Miss Hong Kong, you get a lot of acting opportunities with TVB, usually with like small acting opportunities. And then over a period of about 5 years, you're probably doing a major role in their dramas. Like, it was just so interesting to me because I think that for so long, and in a way that I wasn't even conscious of when I was a child, like, I was so intent on proving that I was American that I cannot imagine moving to Asia to pursue something like that because then for me like personally I feel like it would undermine my Americanness. Like I have eaten too much mac and cheese to go and do that, you know? And
The
so
craft mac and cheese.
yeah, so it's like too many like Jolly Ranchers. So I don't know. I think it's interesting when people decide to go to Asia to then pursue those types of media opportunities. Like a lot of people in K-pop, a lot like for people who don't know, a lot of people in K-pop are actually either from the US or Canada or like New Zealand or something, or they like spend a long period of time here. So they're actually like quite accustomed to Western culture. But then they go to Korea, which is like a very, very like still Korean culture, right? Like, and so I just think it's interesting. Like, I don't know. I don't think I could ever do it.
I completely agree with you because I've done research on Eric. Like his whole story is very interesting because he grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and then went to college in Boston. And then after graduating, he actually had a job offer at one of the big four accounting companies and then put it off so that he could do work with a nonprofit in India. And then after that, somehow decided to go to South Korea to pursue a career in music, which I think is mind boggling because if I were to have gone to another country after I got a degree, which by the way, like my parents paid for my degree, like I feel like they would have lost it. And I can't even imagine trying to get tell my parents that, let alone dealing with like going to that country and dealing with all of the culture shock of having to try to understand how everything's different there than it is here.
Yeah, and to add to that, I don't. A lot of these now idols, I don't think knew that much Korean while they were here.
Hmm.
So to also go to a different country and learn the language, it's like I think for me it would represent such a big existential identity crisis.
Hmm.
And so that I think that's the part that I'm interested in is like how do they feel when they're there? Or is it like the reverse actually is that because they are so Western when they go to these Asian countries, like does that actually reaffirm their Americanness because they're so different from everyone else? But like how do you feel about that? I don't know how like you're supposed to feel about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't know the full details, but Eric has said in interviews where when he first got there, like it was very like Eric is also ethnically Korean. But when he first got to South Korea, like there was a lot of misunderstanding between him and people that he would work with. Like he competed on a singing show and people would just like tell him that he was being super rude and he like didn't understand. And also, yeah, like you said, his Korean wasn't as good as he thought it was. And also, in general, like geographically, languages will differ a little based off of just the culture and how, like, if they shorten words or if they say certain words that aren't really known here. So yeah, like it was a struggle. I don't know how he feels about it now, but it was definitely a struggle when he first got there, from what I gather. And in an interview, Eric has been asked why did he go to South Korea to try to have a music career. And for him, that answer is easy. Like I had no choice. Like he knew that he wouldn't be able to make it if he tried to make it in the States, in his home country, you know? But he knew that his option to learn and to get the opportunities to be able to show his craft to the world, like he knew that that option was there in South Korea.
You know, that actually reminds me of YouTube a lot because if you think about like API media in North America, I think YouTube is where a lot of it is, and it's smaller than it was 10 years ago. I think like 2010 YouTube was dominated
Yeah.
by AJ Raphael, Ryan Higa, Kev Jumbo. Like that was it was really like to me at least like pushing like the boundaries of what YouTube could be.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because Ryan Higa actually makes a lot of money.
Mhm.
Like I've like looked it up. He like makes a lot of money,
Mhm.
but like I don't think many people know who he is, right? Like outside of like the API community.
Which is crazy because wasn't he the first person on YouTube to even reach a million
Yes,
subscribers?
followed
Yeah.
closely by Kev Jumba, I believe. I think they were both like they were like the first two people.
Yeah.
But to that degree, right? I think that ties back to like what we were saying about Crazy Rich Asian is like I think most of the people who were subscribing were young API people, right? Who were in their early teens or something, and that proves that there is an audience, but the audience isn't that big. Because if I go out onto the street and ask a random person, "Do you know who Ryan Higa is?" I can almost guarantee you, if they're like relatively young API people, they 100% will know.
Mhm.
But if they're a little older, they might not. And if they're not API, I don't know if they will.
So I guess like what I don't know, what do you think that means though? Like for our demographic? Like based off of what you said. My first thought is like, oh, there's not a lot of us, therefore we don't have as much representation in media.
No, 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 no. Like my point is right. Like I think API are don't quote me, the fastest growing ethnic slash minority group that's growing in the U.S. Partially because of just like birth rates, but also because immigration is actually really high in this demographic. But compared to the like larger U.S. population, objectively speaking, we are not that many people, right? And even though we're a fast growing ethnic group, we're nowhere near like other populations, right? Is my point.
Mhm.
But that doesn't it doesn't mean like okay like if you take a pie chart of like different racial breakdowns in the US then you can therefore allocate like the percentage of people on TV, right? Like that's not what I mean.
Mhm.
I The reason that we're not represented is because API are represented as the perpetual foreigner
Mm.
in a broader racial context, and that's why, right? But and I think within the API community our narrative is that like we're growing fast and we're doing a lot of things, we're in politics, we're in sports, we're doing all these things, and you need to pay attention to us. But like the the veil of racism doesn't care and I think that's the issue.
Mm. Like the veil of racism that's keeping us from, I guess, like getting into more diverse fields.
Well, no, I think it's like if you like an API person would be like, we deserve more representation. Just be like, I'm just as American as you are, and you don't get to decide whether or not I am. But like, if you're talking to someone who like whose eyes are actually veiled through racism, and by racism I mean like a broader societal thing, not like bigotry or like specific discrimination. I'm just talking about like a broader um, racist veil, right? Like, then they're not gonna agree with you even though they like they might agree with you like somewhat, but they're not going to actually agree with you.
Are you thinking of, like, those people who are like, "Oh, I'm colorblind." Like, I don't see the issue is basically what they're saying.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, I'm colorblind, but there just aren't that many Asians, so I don't think they'll have a good market for movies. You know, like, I think there are so many layers to that statement, and that's where we're running into trouble.
Yeah, no, I think so too because I think that's a terrible assumption to make that like, "Oh, there's not that many Asians." Because how many movies tank because it's just a terrible movie, right? It might have been starred by, like, um, some regular white Americans, but, it or some not regular why do I say these words?
Exactly.
Is the problem. Um, but yeah, no, I don't think that that's a good assumption to make at all, because I hate to bring it up, but again, but, like, Crazy Rich Asians, like, it was pretty profitable. Like, that was a movie that was like, "Okay, like, it will actually sell tickets."
Yeah, but, like, that's the whole point, right? Is the assumption that it's like, it takes a Crazy Rich Asians level, of a movie of such a grand scale to be like, "Oh, this movie will definitely make money because 'cause they're like, oh, look at all these nice clothes," as opposed to, like, maybe an indie movie that just needs a little more funding, and they're not getting the funding.
So, yeah, like, not making those assumptions, I wanna ask you, what do you think are some ways that we can make sure that we support API representation?
Going to the movies that are API led. Like, there are, like, for better or worse, like, there are more API led movies now. I say for worse because, like, that Ken Jeong show on CBS premiered, and it was like Dr. Ken or something, and it was terrible. Like, I'm not saying support bad art, right? I'm saying, like, if there is something that seems decent, like, please go and support. Like, there are API media festivals, like the CAM festival, CAAM, that does a yearly event on, different API movies, and that's really great. But I don't think that's the, like, be all end all solution to, like, why there is not media, right? Like, it's a broader racial question, and that's not something that can be solved by buying a movie ticket. It's not something that can be solved by encouraging more young Asian actors to go into acting. That's not, like, the solution. It's a band aid, right? But if you like, but on the other flip side, like, if you don't do those things, then it gets worse. So I don't know, like, I don't know if that's a definitive answer. I just know that, like, if you see a movie that you support, go buy tickets and go see it, and that'll help at least someone out, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that the front facing stuff and the behind the scenes stuff, you want to support people on screen, like more API actors and artists. And if there is a way to for us to somehow also push for more change behind the scenes, right? Like more directors and what are the casting directors and crew, PAs and all of that. Like if there was more representation there, I feel like that is also what we need as well. Like it's not just what's on screen. We need to see the behind the scenes stuff to change.
Can I ask what, like, how you feel about YouTube, or, like, the Asian part of YouTube, and, like, what, just generally how you feel about it?
I mean, I think YouTube has evolved a lot over the years. When I used to watch when I was in middle school, like that was the only place that was a platform for Asian Americans, and that's why we gravitated towards it so much. And then now though, I think YouTube is a different game. Like I don't think that it's that easy to become a YouTube star anymore. And I also don't know if I would even encourage that for people. 'Cause I think you would, like, put a lot of time into it and then try to be something that you're not just to get big and then, like, just be really sad when it doesn't happen.
Okay. That was morbid. I asked that, right, because I think for a long time the narrative was that, oh, it's okay. Like, it's okay. You're not in movies, but, like, you guys have YouTube. Like, and I, like, watched a video of Phil from Wong Fu saying, like, we need to stop paying attention to that mainstream media stuff. Please, I'm sorry if I misinterpreted you, Phil. But, like, we need to pay. Like, you should be hiring people like Ryan Higa, because Ryan Higa is a huge YouTube star. Like, he obviously has pull, and that was the general message of his video, right? He was saying, like, stop paying so much attention to that mainstream stuff. We're doing great stuff here on YouTube. But I think for me, just watching it from the outside, I don't follow it that closely anymore. I don't think YouTube is pushing those boundaries anymore. I don't think API YouTube is pushing those boundaries anymore. And so, like, I don't know. Like, I think it's just, like, a really interesting dynamic to be in, especially now in 2021, where I think about 2 months ago, AJ Raphael was celebrating getting his 1 millionth
Mhm.
subscriber.
After being on YouTube for like 14 years.
Yeah, and AJ Raphael, who like literally, if you talk to anyone of that generation, knows and knows
Mhm.
very well, and I think that's just mind-boggling to me. And so I just don't know. Like again, like right, the point is that I don't know what the answer is. And to that point, like I think YouTube again is just another band-aid, and is a band-aid that's just kind of like peeling off and not working anymore.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I feel. Like I don't think that it's working anymore. Also, like a lot of people who used to do YouTube like back in the day, when AJ Raphael started as well, like a lot of those people don't do YouTube anymore, and I think that it's because it's changed. Like I don't know how, but definitely not pushing the boundaries, and it's definitely not doing as much for the API community as it did in the beginning days. But something that I actually think is pushing boundaries is the band Day 6. And I really like this band because I grew up listening to a lot of alternative rock, punk rock, and I listened to all these different kinds of bands and as a teenager growing up in the States, but no one looked like me. And Day 6 being an all Asian rock band is something I didn't know I needed. I only discovered them like
You're like that meme that's like, I never knew I needed this.
no, I really didn't because I only discovered Day 6 a few months ago. I wanna say it was 4 months ago, and seeing them and, like, feeling myself represented, it was something I didn't know that I really wanted in an artist.
Okay, wait. When I see K-pop, I don't feel represented. Like me personally, like I'm not saying like API are not allowed to feel represented. I'm saying like I don't see like I compared to something like Fresh Off the Boat that I love and very much gravitated toward. Like I felt represented by Fresh Off the Boat. I don't feel represented by K-pop. Do you feel represented by K-pop?
I don't necessarily think that I feel represented by K-pop as a whole. I think it's the fact that like for me the personal connection is high school through college. I saw so many bands live and it was a big part of me. Like I was literally known by my friends as the girl who always goes to concerts every weekend. And because it was such a big part of my identity, I think like seeing a band like Day 6 was just phenomenal. And what made me kind of sad finding out about them was knowing that they wouldn't have made it big in the US, or a band like that
Yes.
wouldn't have made
Yes.
it big.
Yes. I feel like for a lot of bands, they might have like one Asian person,
Mhm.
right? So like, I'm thinking like Young the Giant, um, The Naked and Famous. Those literally, those are the only two I can think of. I think there was like an
Wait, what's the
all
one Mike Shinoda? Where I should know what band he's in.
who's that? I don't know names of people in bands.
Uh,
Beyond like
Chester
K-pop people.
Chester Bennington's band.
Who?
Oh my gosh. Linkin Park. Oh, wow,
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
that was too hard. Mike Shinoda is half Japanese.
Shinoda.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. Like those are the bands that I listen to and know. Um, but it's never like a full Asian band, except for like I think a couple years ago there was one Asian band that like used like their name called like the Slants or something. Which, for the record, do not do that.
Mhm.
And other than that, I don't think I know of any all Asian bands.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I mean, there's probably I think there are probably some out there, but it's very very local, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but like also like to your earlier point, right? Like I don't think parents are going to be very happy with their kid joining a band.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah, like I even think about like All Time Low as a band that I really like growing up. I still really like them. They have new music out, by the way. And they started touring after they graduated high school. They were freaking 18. And the fact that they were able to do that, like I don't think that's at all possible for people like us.
Yeah, but like, is that not similar to people moving to South Korea when they're like 15? It's actually worse when they're moving there when they're 15, right?
It is because they don't even graduate high school yet.
Yeah. So there are like parents out there that do accept it. It's like, but I think the problem is right. There's a small market here,
Yes.
for a band that happens to be all Asian.
Yeah.
Um, And the thing about like band culture too is like you clearly know like the names of like a lot of band people. The only person's name I know is Maddie from the 1975,
Oh my
and I'm a
gosh.
huge 1975 fan. I don't know their names except for
Yeah.
Maddie.
Well, I mean, like, the bands that you were saying, like, Young the Giant, Samir is the lead singer. Uh,
Did not know his name.
yeah, there's several Asians in that band. I was
Oh, I can see. I didn't know that, right? But like, so you know,
something that we've kinda talked about in the past was I didn't realize that a lot of mainstream artists don't write their own songs because bands that I had seen, they have to write all of their songs because they don't have, like, a big contract with the label that they're with. They have to do all of the writing, they can't just buy all these songs.
yeah, and it's like it's also just the culture. This is turning into a music episode, and I'm just kind of confused, but it's okay. But like band culture itself, like we value singer songwriters. Like that's something we really care about. Um, Whereas with like more mainstream artists, I think there's less of an incentive to care about whether or not they write their own songs.
Yeah, which is so weird because like for me it was like I really enjoyed like interviews where all these bands would explain the song meanings and they would go into depth of like this is the inspiration, this is the perspective I was writing the song in, you know, and they would go into all these details and it'd be deep. It wouldn't be something super surface level, you know? So that's what I really liked about it. I like it when there's like deeper meanings.
I mean, okay, but like to be fair, most songs are written by Ryan Tedder, and Ryan Tedder is in a band. So I think by proxy, most songs are in fact written by a band, by a Ryan Tedder.
Okay. I don't know statistics wise, like, okay, not like
Right, I just said most songs are written by Ryan Tedder. Don't quote me.
I was like, not like more than 50%. Okay, Ryan Tedder is a good songwriter. Though I don't actually follow him super closely because I mean, his I think his songs are good, but it's just not my like my preference. My not my preferred genre, you know?
Yes, your preference is day six, like that like minor key sounding type of jazzy song.
Okay, the whole minor key thing, I can't believe that that was a thing. That was hilarious to find that out because I had no idea I had a preference for minor key. But also, okay, here's the other thing. Day 6 has a very diverse sound. They can be super rock, they can be super pop, they can be very rock and also jazzy at the same time. And also a little bit of hip hop.
Yes, which like I don't think works in a context outside of K-pop.
Yes, that is true because I think here in the States, it would be like you're just trying too hard to be everything.
Like when Mumford and Sons changed their sound a bit after their second album,
Yes.
everyone lost their minds.
Everyone did, yeah, when they decided to ditch the banjo for just that well, I guess the 2 subsequent albums.
Yeah, and but like the point of K-pop, right, is that you're trying a bunch of different genres all the time, and I think that probably helps Day Six in crafting their sound and being more experimental. But I don't again like I you know like that wouldn't work here, and Day Six would not have formed here because you would need like that perfect combination of people to meet, um, and so it just wouldn't work.
Mhm. Yeah. Which is crazy though, because for anyone who hasn't listened to Day 6, they are phenomenal artists and they also are extremely talented. Like you listen to each of their parts in a song and you're just like, dang, every single one of these members really know how to sing. Not that I like don't think that artists here are super talented, but I think like these guys are just on another level, you know?
Yeah.
And I just wish that they could have made it here.
Well, I mean, okay, but also I don't think that I think that if Day Six existed here, they would not be as successful because they're not in K-pop. Like there is something about like being in the K-pop industry that just fuels like this hyper popularity that probably helped Day Six a lot that I don't think exists in band culture here.
That's true. I think it has a lot to do with like the fan culture, right? Of just how like, you know, they have like a name and the band they address the fans by name. They like are very personal with them and I don't know, like it definitely is not the same here with the way that we view fans and artists. Like that relationship is a little different.
I think that also just unfortunately brings to mind the most popular K-pop band out there right now, which is BTS. Um, BTS recently was nominated for a Grammy for their performance of Dynamite, but they didn't win the Grammy. And so, I don't quite know how to feel about that. Like, on the one hand, it would have been really nice if they had won because they deserve it. Like, to be clear, BTS deserves every award that they get, and they have like a billion awards that they deserve every single one of them. But I like, to me, like, for me personally, right? Like, if BTS wins this award, does that mean it's representation? Right? When Parasite won the award, I was like, oh, that's cool, but like, I'm not from South Korea, so I can't relate to the intricacies of that film. Therefore, it's strange to me. Whereas I feel like if Fresh Off the Boat won like an Emmy or something, I'd be like, this is amazing. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is perfect. And so I don't know. Like, I don't know if BTS, for me personally, like, represents that type of representation that I am seeking. Or maybe I just don't know what type of representation I'm seeking.
So I guess it kind of depends on how you want to look at it. Because one time, Eric Nam had his brother on his podcast, and they were just talking about K-pop and how they felt that K-pop is being more accepted by Western listeners, and they thought that at some point you should just drop the K-pop label and just accept it as mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, like, but I think that's where I run into the issue is like with that word of acceptance. Like, why does it have to be accepted? Like, when you say accepted, you're implicitly saying there is like there's a gate that needs to be opened.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, these, like, I think this exact question is one of those questions that like people just don't have an answer for. Is like, is accepting the answer, or is just getting rid of the gate the answer? But what does getting rid of the gate mean, right? And so with like, I struggle with K-pop because like it's just so divisive, and it's like, just because BTS is breaking all these records doesn't mean that like things are getting better. Like, just because Marie Kondo had that show on Netflix doesn't mean that people are not suddenly racist toward Japanese people.
Yeah, I think all of these aspects that you covered are like they're very complicated, and it's not just going to be like, okay, like how do we solve racism, the age old question. um I don't know, like I bring it to myself to just be like, okay, like this is what I want to see and what I would want, and I think other people can benefit from it, so I would push for that.
Like, just like, so for you, it's like just the act of having like more Asian faces at the Grammys is beneficial in and of itself, right?
I think it is beneficial, but at the same time, I don't watch these award shows anymore because I find it very stuffy. I find it very, like, exclusive. And I don't know. I don't really care too much for it anymore. But I think it does help. I think overall, it is better to have more diversity.
Yes, agreed.
Well, okay, nobody would ever outrightly say that they don't think that more diversity is better, but I think it's important to support making sure that the spaces that we have are more diverse than they currently are.
That's probably the closest thing we can get to a solution.
Yes.
But the thing is, like, how that is enacted is where we run into problems.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have the answers. I don't think you have the answers on how to get to that, right?
How dare you?
Oh, come on.
How dare you?
All right, tell me the answers right now.
I don't want to tell you.
You don't have any, do you?
You'll never know.
Well, that was the end of the episode. So thank you, Vivian, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I certainly hope you all enjoyed that episode. Thanks again to Vivian for having this very fun conversation with me. I know we can go on for hours about this topic, so we may have to do a few follow-up episodes to continue this on. And again, just wanted to wish everyone a happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And the month is almost over, and even if you're not listening to this episode in May, you can still show your love and support for the API community, especially those who work in entertainment, by supporting great artists and actors that are just really awesome. If you're like me and you love quality music, go and support my favorite band, Day 6, and stream their new album, Negentropy. It is really, really great. It's super high quality. Just go and check it out. And Eric Nam also has a few new songs out, so you definitely want to go and stream those as well. Or maybe you want to support one of our favorites, Steven Yeun. So go out and watch Minari. It's still available to pay to stream online, so go out and watch it. It's a really, really great movie. And you know what? There are just so many good artists, groups, actors, filmmakers, and organizations to support. So go out and just show your support in whatever way that you'd like. And of course, just thank you so much for listening to this episode. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and on Facebook, and subscribe to this podcast and make some good choices. And please stay safe. Thanks, and I'll talk to y'all next time.